Hey people, I'm back. I'm back again. Um, a little sick, right? So I hope that doesn't interfere with this video. I don't know about y'all, but it's hard to read or write or any of the fun stuff we like to do when I'm sick. So I've lost about a day just because it was too annoying. But I think I still managed to finish, and it's because I had started this book in previous weeks. I can't read this thing in 1 week. That's not possible. This week is Shogun by James Clavell. A unit, right? Don't want to cough. Oh, it's gonna be annoying. Okay, I don't have a cough button, right? I don't have a. It's just a headset. I don't have a cough button. I just have to not cough. Okay, so this was a TV show apparently in like the 70s or something. I had no idea. I had just heard off a Disney press conference that they wanted to make this into a TV show on FX. So it got me interested. I'm like, maybe I'll go see if I can find the book at my used bookstore. Lo and behold, I found it. Trying to think what I'm going to do if I cough. I don't know. I found it in any case. It's a wonderful book. I don't know how cheap you could probably find it super cheap on eBay. You could probably find it still for sale. Regular stores. It's very popular. He's a very popular author. I give this a 5 out of 5. Yeah, I know. For it being this thick, I think everyone could find something enjoyable in it. Even people who, if people who don't read spent like a year reading this book, I think they'd be very happy with themselves, right? And at the end of the day, they would have read something, worthy. And if you read a lot of other books, you can take a stop, jump into this one, and like I did, read a bit here and there in between other books, and I think you would enjoy it. It's not complex writing, right? So it goes down easy for as thick as it is. It it's quick. It's engaging. There's always something happening. It propels you and itself forward at a pretty good clip. You would think there would be dead spots, but there kind of aren't. He takes a lot of complexities and sort of merges them into one cohesive story. What we have here is we have this. I think there's a few spots like this. There are rich storytelling potential premises, not times, right? The Napoleonic time. I think it's rich with story that's untapped. Um, Obviously, you're British, colonial British, rich with stories, very much tapped, and it's not running out. They're still fun for people. Um, this one picks the Reformation, right? So we have whatever era that was. We have wooden ships, the New World's being explored. Um, Catholics and Protestants do not like each other. There's a Spanish Inquisition still going on, right? And our Asia countries are kind of locked out, right? We haven't got there yet. This is the sort of setting that it puts us in, and it really is ripe for storytelling because we have built-in motivators, right? If I get two houses in Germany, on two sides of the street, and one's Protestant and one's Catholic, I have a built-in story. Everything everything in that era branched off of that essential choice. They wouldn't let it they wouldn't let anything slide, right? They were in England. If you were Protestant and the Catholics in charge, they're not letting you shop at shops. They're firing you from your job. They're beating you up in the street. They're looking down on you and your family, and going down the line until one of them says, you know what, I'm not with him, I'm Protestant. And then there would be a sea change, and then the whole thing would be upset again. Right? So these things have built-in motivators. But it's such it's not concrete, right? There's not like Martin Luther King walking up the steps to do his speech and then he's assassinated. Those are very concrete moments in time. The Reformation didn't really have that. Once the idea is let loose, the fire just sort of burns throughout Europe. So there's not these big moments that really indicate, right, for a story to hang itself on. It just turns into this interpersonal situation, this inner dislike from other people, right? And for a lot of people, I think a lot of authors, that might be boring, right? When you could just talk about a war or put your setting in something more dramatic like this, right? But I think that they're missing the drama that's there, this human drama. But our James Clavell does not miss this. He's able to take all these things that like a character would carry with them, right? You're a grown man in this world. You understand what's happening around you. But then you go do one thing. That's what's happening here. Blackthorn, our pilot, is crash landed on Japan. And then everything starts taking off. There's already Portuguese. There's already Portuguese Catholics on the island. Now, it's another thing he does, our author. Everything feels very fact-based. The Catholics, the Spanish Catholic, Latin Catholics, were much more vicious than everyone else, right? There was a lot of killing that went on. And that's sort of the Latinish area. The Italians killed a bunch of Protestants. I know the Spanish and the Portuguese killed a lot of Catholics. The British killed some, but they started to get along a lot faster. In that, I'm not just trying to kill a bunch of British people. I just like, look, just get away from me. That's sort of how the British took it. And the Germans sort of the Germans more or less drove the Catholics out. They would flee to Spain, Italy, this kind of thing. So he lets a lot of dialogue fill that in for you, right? He doesn't take the boring time to lay out the history of this, right? In between, he'll have Blackthorn captured by the Japanese, because who are these barbarians? And a priest comes up. He doesn't like this priest instantly because he instantly knows it's Catholic, and they're like fighting each other out on the seas. And so he's like, "You piece of crap," and he's like vehemently against him. And the priest is vehemently back at him, and the Japanese are like, "The crap, what are you saying?" Sorry. And Blackthorn knows, because for a bit there, that was his only way to communicate. So he was like, this piece of crap's going to lie to me and get us all killed. So he eggs the guy on, right? And already we have the setting pushing our action. I love it. I love it, and it goes throughout this whole book. He eggs the priest on. The priest sort of flips his lid, and then it buys him time, right? He constantly buys himself some time until he gets himself a translator, a Japanese lady to translate for him, and then it gets more complicated. And that's another thing that happens. You get your bearings, and then there's more complication. Because our story isn't in Europe, right? It's in Japan. So all that Reformation becomes motivator for the priests and the Spanish and their money making in Nagasaki. And then it all becomes a motivator for Blackthorn. But he's also trying to survive. But none of that really care. The Japanese don't really care about that. And that's the third element he adds. A third element. Because we have. Okay. If we're just setting in Japan, it's the same as the Reformation. They have a full world of internal politics that's completely tied up with their culture. The Bushido samurai culture. And our author goes a long way into explaining this, which again is another reason this book's fun. You could listen to a full-on documentary, right? Just explaining the ins and outs of some of this Japanese culture. That could be fun. But when an author can interweave it into a story that's already exciting, it's a more fulfilling book, right? And that's what he does. They get chucked in a pit. It's a stank, horrible pit. Japanese do this. You look in World War II, when you were a prisoner of Japan, it was rough. Very, very rough. Right? They're just rough with their prisoners. They have this type of mentality. He tried to lead a breakout. Almost got past a couple of guards. But again, was beaten because there's too many samurai over on the beach. Those guards were chucked down in with him because they failed. Then they tried to kill themselves, and then he stops them because he's European and you don't like people killing themselves. But at any point when they're too shamed, these samurai will stab themselves in the stomach and kill themselves, right? It's kind of wild. That bubbles up to the politics. At any point, when you're dealing with someone higher than you, these Japanese samurai will say, "I'm sorry, I messed up. Do you want me to kill myself?" Almost like a resignation. Like, I'm just tossing that at you anytime. I'll do it anytime you want. And the guy's like, "Nah, I'm not going to let you kill yourself. You live with the shame. And go do this, this, and this." Right? All this is interweaved in our story, and it's nuts. And it's nuts for our Blackthorn as well. He's early on, he's constantly thrown by this brutality, right? They torture one of his guys to death horribly. Another element, side note. It's kind of an adult book. He doesn't shy away when somebody got. He kills them. Men, women will die. The romance, the sexy time can get a little bit much. So maybe I wouldn't recommend it to children. But adults can read this book. And it's not a Harlequin, so it's not going to be too much in the weeds. But even this he uses as this cultural mirror, right? To show how much different the Japanese are than Europeans. The Japanese have they call them willow girls. I think this is before geishas. Just full-on prostitutes, right? They entertain you they sing and dance, they serve you tea, and then, a little sexy time. And of course, the Portuguese see this as disgusting. Blackthorn's a little thrown by it. On and on we go. It's just to show this difference. That's the main reason he has it in there. All right. So at first, he's just struck by how brutal they are. They killed their own people as fast as almost they'll kill his. And he sees like somebody gets stabbed, right? Like just killed right in front of him. And he looks around. No one's blinking an eye. No one takes it a half step crazy. Is it that they don't mind it at all? But then later, when there's some kind of there's like an accident, right? Somebody's stuck somewhere, and the other guys are like, I guess he's dead. Sucks. Blackthorn doesn't. He's like, we can save him, and he like freaks the crap out to save him. Then they realize it, and one of them like jumps off the cliff to get the guy's attention so that he knows he can be saved, which again throws Blackthorn. They'll do this kind of thing. And so he's like another element of our author. There's an inner monologue with Blackthorn where he sees the event and then later he thinks about it like what did I just see? I'm like, they're barbarians. They just hack people apart and then laugh about it. But then I've never seen a knight hurl himself off a cliff just to get his lord's attention. That's got to be brave. That's got to be, what is this bravery mixed with this barbarism, right? And he has to deal with this a lot for a good fourth of the book. He just can't, right? He just can't square it away. All the interactions. Later, and he learns the language fairly quick. Could we say this is possible? I think so. I think everything in this book is highly possible. Some people pick up languages very quickly. He might be one of these. I don't know. But he starts to integrate himself into Japan, and then we start to get more and more of the Japanese politics, which is high stress. Nagumo? I think that's his name. I should have written it down. I'm going to blame that I'm sick. How about that? Why don't we do that? Toranaga. My bad. Toranaga. He's the head. He's the head dynamo. That's what they call them. That's what their lords would be. So their structure is like they have Eta, untouchables, people that just don't, they're disgusting to them, which would be dealing with dead bodies, tanners, people who eat meat, and it's mostly hereditary, this kind of thing. So if you're born Eta, you just stuck Eta. You come in and mess with bodies and make leathers and stuff like this. Even though they want leather, they won't touch it. Then they have like the next, which is funny. In their culture, peasants are seen as better than merchants. They don't like dirty merchants who sell stuff, which is kind of funny, but I've heard it in other old writings before where like the worst thing you could be is a salesman, which is kind of funny to me because we're like, it's just you, dude owns a store. Yeah, he's a pillar of the community and not them. They're like, this piece of crap only cares about money. It's kind of funny. All the sort of stuff they might say about Jews, they say just sort of about merchants, but there's no Jews in Japan at this time, right? It's kind of funny. And then above them will be, right? So it's merchants, peasants, sort of well-to-do, and then we're like in the samurai, dynamos, regents, and everyone is below the emperor. Everyone loves the emperor. No one will do anything to the emperor, right? So he's a big-time dynamo. And he has an issue where the other ones want him dead because it's a power play. I can get you out. I get these guys on my side. I give them your land. I give them this. I give them that. You learn it's a very in-depth, action-oriented way of telling you about the complexities of politics in Japan in that time. It's wonderfully done. It really, really is. It's a good chunk of this book too. And the reason it's so long, the reason it's so thick is because he'll sometimes do this, what is it, what I call it? I call it action in triplicate, right? So, something happens, right? We get Blackthorn's boat. It's full of guns. And so automatically this guy, the Lord here, Yabu, he's thinking of what he can do with these guns. I could train up a bunch of samurai to use the guns. I can take over this. I can have this much more land. I'll have a boat that can open some of the coast for me. This is great. I'm going to do great. Omi, his like second in charge, starts thinking what he could do with the guns, right? Or how he could one up Yabu and get full control of the clan and then have all of the possessions. Cut to our, what do I call him? Oh my God, write something down, bro. Nagamo? Is that what I said? Toranaga. Ah, bro, write something down. Our Toranaga shows up and he's like, thank you for the boat. Since you're my vassal, thank you. You've done a great thing. My thanks is what you get. And he shows up and he just lays waste to all this guy's plans. Right? Because he knew about the boats. And here's what he wants to do with them. Right? So he'll show me one action and 3 different people's take on that action. And then maybe 3 people's inner monologues on what they think that action means, how it could benefit them, what they'll do about it. You see what I mean? And he does this for a good chunk of this book. And it's highly interesting. It really is. Because a lot of their setup would be in these, because it's Japan, they have what they call saving face, right? I guess here we would do, like if you're in a big time deal, right? Like I need to make $1 billion deal. You learn about the other person. And then you try not to insult them to not blow up the deal. Our reward system's the money, right? Japan's sometimes isn't the money. It would be, you can't make me look like a fool, this and that. There's more interpersonal action that's happening. And you're like, well, who cares if I have the money? Well, what ends up happening in Japan is they'll full on like blacklist you. You get over on me for the money. You used it. You're using it against me. Sorry. But then from then on, me and all my friends band together to completely squeeze you out of the market. And then you're gone and it doesn't matter anyway. So you're trying to do both in Japan. I'm trying to get some cash and save face at the same time. So, if you can publicly shame someone into saying the right thing, you've won the sort of verbal argument, if that makes sense. We have a lot of these verbal arguments in this book. But just when you think we're just onto verbal arguments, they'll show up and like start fighting each other, because that's another option. You've insulted me enough, I'm going to stab you. And the other guy's like, well, I'm not going to let you stab me. And then they'll just fight right there, and everyone lets them. Right? Or you pull a power play, and then you tell them to go kill themselves, and they have no option but to do it. Otherwise, they would live with this eternal shame, blah, blah, blah. It's highly intricate. It really is. At some point we have ninjas show up, because why not ninjas? They try to assassinate this lady. It's very action-packed. It sort of gets me to maybe the part I don't like about the book. And it's not even because I gave it a 5 out of 5. It's one of those that's a personal preference, right? When you get to about here, you start to understand, like, bro, there's not enough time for what you want. Because what I wanted, right, because in amongst here, our Toranaga is trying to take over, basically. And we keep talking about a battle. How to do it, what to do, what's going on. And if I could have had a big battle, I think I'd have had a lot of fun. But this is sort of me being greedy, right? they don't give us a big battle at the end. And it's a little disappointing. I think it could have fit in there. I wonder why he didn't do it. But it feels, the way he does the end does feel realistic, which is another thing that really carries the book. You know, like in some movies, you're like, these crazy Asian movies, and there's like 10,000 arrows coming, and you can just like slice all the arrows up. We don't have any kind of craziness like that. The sword fights are realistic. Um, the damage that these swords can do is realistic. You know, gunpowder, realistic. If you get burnt, realistic. The dangers of an earthquake, realistic. Right? So he keeps everything very real, and not and even in the decision makings of the people, right? It stays because in real life, right? There's always sort of not a happy ending sometimes, but kind of there is, right? Where things are just a little bent where it should be straight. Things could have gone X, Y, and Z and it's just been happily ever after. But a lot of times it doesn't happen in real life. And that he takes twists that you wouldn't anticipate lends itself to that realism. Not every twist. He's not twisting everything on for the most drama possible. A lot of times it's anticlimactic, right? Which is realistic. If there's something that's going to come to a head, a lot of times people will avoid that. What can I do to not fight this person? What can I do to not lose my job? I have the idea to do a hostile takeover, but I don't have the gumption to do it, right? That's realistic. So the book's very realistic in the end. Now I know I'm not what I normally would do, but you can't do it with this book. Otherwise, I'd be here for I don't know how many hours. You can't go through. I'm not going to go through every instance of a situation because it's too many. It's the whole book is one after the other. Instance, conflict, resolution leads to more action, leads to more conflict. Right? It's very much like this. But I just had to tell you the strengths of this book, where this culture, these issues, are constantly motivating our people throughout this book. It's very, very good. How long is this? Ah, all right. You know what? I think that's good enough. It's kind of short. You would think I'd go longer on a long book, but I highly recommend this book. I think that's long enough. I can't go into every little thing. All right. Add time. Yeah, I had to wait for this, and I coughed throughout. It's very. I'm unprofessional. Okay. I'm pretty sure I won't be sick by I don't know tomorrow, the next day. So I'm gonna keep reading. Another book will be coming. I'm trying not to miss any weeks, obviously. Look at these books of mine. Go buy one if you're interested. And if you've seen Shogun, tell me what you think. Go read it, people. It's actually a good book. I'm not gonna lie. All right, talk to you later.